All right. So thank you everybody for joining us. I see the number is still ticking up, but we will go ahead and get started. Emily, could you take us to the housekeeping slide? Awesome. Thank you. Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for attending our training today. This is going to tell you everything that you need to know about your congressional meetings next week and the week after. So a little bit of housekeeping. Today, we have a Spanish language interpretation in Espanol. It is under the globe at the bottom of your screen. And if you click that, you can toggle between English and Spanish. And so we have Fernanda here translating us for today. So thank you, Fernanda. We also have captions available in English. If you go to the bottom of your screen, there's a CC button. You can enable captions that way, or if you're on mobile, you can do that in the meeting settings. We are going to be recording this, so if you have to leave for whatever reason, you can watch it back later on YouTube or on Facebook. And just to note that we aren't providing any medical advice today. We're just going to be talking advocacy and advocacy solutions. So that is good to know. And then lastly, we're going to have two Q&A sections this time. We're going to have a Q&A about the technical aspect of the platform that we're using from Advocacy Associates. So any questions you have about accessing your schedule, you can ask them in the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen or in the chat. And then after Emily does her presentation about our advocacy asks and about our meetings and storytelling, we'll have another Q&A, and those questions you can also put in the Q&A box and in the chat as well. So with that, I will go ahead and hand it off to Emily.
Hello, Advocacy Month participants. Thank you so much for joining us for this live training for May Advocacy Month. It is my absolute pleasure to be your host this afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. My name is Emily Taylor. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy and Engagement, and I'm joined here by Lincoln Clapper, who is our manager from Advocacy Associates, who will be walking you through the platform that we use for coordinating all of your customized and personalized meeting schedules. So with that, I'm going to not waste any more time and welcome Lincoln Clapper. Let me stop the share. There we go. Lincoln, if you could share a little bit about the amazing platform your team has put together and how our advocates can use it, that would be a wonderful start. And we'll have a short moment for Q&A at the end.
Yeah, thanks. Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lincoln Clapper. I'm part of the Advocacy Associates team here in DC, and we're really excited to partner with you all again on your event this year. I believe this makes it about 4 or 5 years in a row now, Emily, if I'm not mistaken. So this will be our third virtual event with you all. And so I just want to spend a few minutes to walk everybody through the portal that you're going to be using for your meetings this year. For those of you that did this event last year, a lot of it will look familiar, but we have made some changes. And so again, want to sort of cross T's and dot I's ahead of your meetings next week so everyone's on the same page. So that being said, I'm going to share my screen here and we'll get started with the presentation. So you all should have received an email from us. It went out yesterday, Tuesday, May 3rd. And that email would have come from Advocacy Day at advocacyassociates.com. And within that email is all the information that you'll need to get into your schedule. If you haven't gotten that email from us yet, check your spam or junk folder. It more than likely is sitting there. If you do find it there, please unmark it as spam, because this will be our main way of communicating with you in terms of time changes, scheduling updates, cancellations, additions. All of that is going to come through over email. We want to make sure that you're getting all of that correspondence. Now, within that email are, again, the two important pieces of information that you'll need. You'll see a link to your schedule, a URL, in the upper right corner. And in the middle part of that email will be your login credentials. So you'll see a username, which will be your email address, and then a temporary password that will be generated for you by our system. So when you click on the URL, it'll take you to a login page where you're going to want to enter those credentials. Enter your email address, that temporary password that we provided to you. Click the sign in button once you've done that. You'll then be prompted to change that temporary password to your own password. And once you've met all the requirements, you'll see all the check marks turn green. You can click send, and then you'll be launched into your schedule. If you are already on your computer or tablet or laptop or whatever device you're planning on taking these meetings from, this will be the only time that you will be asked to do this. So once you've created your password and logged into your schedule, you're going to stay logged in every time you revisit the site. So it'll be very much like an app. Now, if for some reason you become logged out, or maybe you're trying to access from a new device and you forgot your password, you can easily reset it. Just click the forgot password link that you'll see on the homepage. It'll take you through a very simple reset process, very similar to anything you've ever done online before. Now, if you have any questions or you're having any technical problems, there will be a contact link in that initial email from us at the bottom. So go there if you're having any trouble, and our development team will reach out to you on an individual basis to get any of those issues resolved. Now, once you're logged into your schedule, all of your, you're going to see a home dashboard that'll look similar to this. All of your confirmed meetings will be displayed with a time next to them. Anything that's still pending will be displayed as TBD. This just means we're still working on a time with that office. We may be having to reschedule. There could be a host of issues. Regardless, once those meetings become confirmed on your schedule, you will get a notification email about that from us. So you'll be very much in the loop in the days and weeks moving forward here if there's any changes to your schedule in terms of pending meetings. Please note that all times on your schedule are going to be displayed in the time zone you're located in when viewing it. And this is a new change that we've implemented from last year. So long story short, you do not need to do any time conversions anymore. It will automatically adjust based on your location, and you should see that reflected in your schedule. Now, to get the information for each meeting, you have to click on the module. So basically anywhere within that red box there, it'll launch you into that specific meeting dashboard. So you'll see the time and date for the meeting again at the top, followed by who you're actually going to be speaking with in the office, whether it's the staffer or the member of Congress or both. If there's been a meeting lead assigned to your meeting, you'll see that person's name displayed here. If not, that area is going to be blank. To access the video component for your meeting, you want to click on the green Join Online Meeting button. This will pull up the Zoom platform, I would say 99% of the time. So you can expect to engage with that dashboard. There's a few offices that may use WebEx or Teams or some other program, but the same concept applies. Just click on the button and it'll open up whatever dashboard is necessary. Now, if you cannot access via video, you can of course dial in. You'll have that option as well. Just follow the directions in this area here if you need to access the meeting via dial-in. All of your talking points will be in the talking points module here, followed by all of your documents in the documents module beneath that. If you click on each document, it'll open up in a separate tab, which will allow you to toggle back and forth between your schedule and your documents and your Zoom platform all at the same time. The attendees section will show all the attendees who are going to be in that meeting with you. There may be some relevant contact information displayed there as well if you'd like to contact each other outside of your meetings. You can also turn this on or off by clicking on your name in the upper right corner and then clicking on the privacy tab. You can then turn that information on or off as you see fit. This will just, again, allow you to connect with each other outside the platform. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, maybe do some practicing together. Again, just an extra resource for you. You're also able to chat with each other through our peer-to-peer chat function. If you click on the blue chat bubble, you can send direct messages to each other through the system. If somebody sends you a message this way, you will get a notification about that from the platform as well. On the left-hand side is our report form area. The first one is the check-in feature. Basically, this is an attendance report that we take. So it's very important for you to click that button either before or after each meeting, because we'll be sending this report to the government affairs team after this event, and we want to be able to highlight that you were present. So again, just click that button either before or after each meeting. Beneath that, you'll have the ability to send a thank you email. This will pull up a script that's already been crafted for you by the government affairs team. You can, of course, personalize it or customize it however you see fit, but you'll see a lot of that work has already been done for you, and it'll automatically pull the staffer's email who you met with. So you'll have that contact information handy as well. And you can send this in one of two ways. If you click that blue open email button at the top, it'll pull up whatever your native dashboard is on your device. So as an example, for me, I use Microsoft Outlook. That would pull up an Outlook email for me to send. If you're using Gmail or Yahoo or something web-based, you can copy this information with those three copy clipboards beneath it. Sorry, three copy clipboard buttons beneath that, and then paste it into the email client of your choice. Beneath that will be the meeting report form. This will be a list of specific questions for you to answer after each meeting. Go through and answer those one by one while it's still fresh on your mind. When you get to the bottom, you'll see a submit button, and that way you'll know that you've submitted it properly. Just click that, and then you can navigate your way to that next meeting. Beneath that will be a take notes feature. This is basically a blank notepad. If you'd like to take freehand style notes, this is basically an option for you to take those freehand style notes instead of using pen or paper. Some people use it, some don't. It's optional. It's really just an extra resource for you. We do send these notes to the team as well after the event. So if there's any information you'd like to put in there that you couldn't get across on your meeting report form, please do that. Beneath that is an option to select if the member of Congress attended or did not attend. This is just a key data point that we try to get, and we can only get that from the attendees who are in the meeting. Sometimes the meeting is scheduled with a member of Congress, but they get pulled away to votes or they're stuck at a committee hearing and they can't make it. So it's just a useful way to cross-reference everything in terms of a debrief, and it's very useful for follow-up. So please, again, mark one of those options as well. And lastly, for you social media fans, if you'd like to access your Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn, you can drop a post on any of those platforms as well. We'll make it really easy to access from the main page. Once the meeting concludes, click on the Meetings tab. It'll take you back to the home page, and then you can go to that next meeting on your schedule. The Legislators tab will take you to an area where you can view bios for everybody you're meeting with, such as this. It'll also include links to all of their social media pages as well, if you'd like to explore those further. The Bills tab will highlight any relevant bills you may be tracking for this event, and it'll also show the vote history of how that member has voted on it previously at the bottom. There is another way to get to your bills, which I'll be going over towards the end of the presentation. The News tab will pull any relevant news articles that they've been mentioned in. You can read about those online. And the Committees tab will show all the committees that that member of Congress serves on. The Messages tab will show all those direct peer-to-peer messages between yourself and other advocates. The directory will be a master directory of every attendee in this event in case you want to contact somebody outside your meetings. And the Support tab, and I just want to spend a second here to highlight this again, will really be your best friend in terms of anything support moving forward, whether it's scheduling support, technical support, you can't make a meeting, anything and everything support really should go through this, this tab here, and it really will be the fastest, most efficient way to get any question resolved. The More tab is basically a drop-down menu of a lot of the content I've already reviewed. There may be some additional resources in there, such as links to other websites or maybe an overall event feedback survey. So take a look at that once you've logged into it. But the one area I do want to highlight here is the Bills function. So if you click on the Bills tab from the drop-down menu, it'll take you to an area where you can view each bill that is specific for your particular event. And if you click into each bill, so anywhere within that red box, it'll take you to an area where you can view the vote history, or you can view co-sponsors and sponsors and the current status of the bill. So you'll have all of that at your fingertips right in front of you before each meeting as well. Okay, so again, if you haven't gotten that email from us, please check your spam or junk folder. That's more than likely is sitting there. I'll be able to provide a link for you to reach out to support if it's not in your spam or junk, or if you haven't gotten that email from us yet, where you can request a support tab where we can get in touch with you to resolve that. We're asking everybody to get into their meetings 10 minutes prior to the start time. And that's whether you're calling in or via video. This will just make sure you get in early enough to touch base with the other attendees in your group. You can clarify on roles, get any technical glitches out of the way. That way, when the office joins at the start time, everyone's ready to go and you can start the meeting on time. All times on your schedule are going to be shown in the time zone you're located in when viewing it. So again, you will not need to do any time conversions. You're going to get a reminder email from us 1 hour prior to each meeting throughout the course of the day, or this event, sorry. This will help keep you on track. It will also include a link to your schedule in it, which will make it really easy to get in and out of your schedule throughout the course of the event. If the office doesn't join your meeting within 10 minutes past the start time, please let us know. There will be a help number in the support tab for you to call if it's a really time-sensitive issue like that. Members and staff will run late just like the rest of us sometimes, but please do give them a 10-minute buffer to join before letting us know. These meetings may go anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, so just prepare your talking points accordingly. I know Emily and her team are going to be reviewing that information here in a second. Any changes to your schedule will be sent over email. So again, make sure you're monitoring that really regularly. Again, time changes, cancellations, additions, all of that's going to come through over email. Make sure you're in an area with good Wi-Fi connection, as again, most, if not all of your meetings will have a video component to them. Please mute your microphone whenever you're not speaking. And lastly, just know your audience, ensure you have an appropriate background. And what I mean by that is nothing super politically charged, as you'll be speaking with both Republicans and Democrats throughout the course of your project. And as I mentioned, so if you didn't get an email from us or you don't see it in your spam or junk, go to this site here. It looks like I may have a typo in there. So I'll drop this in the link. So Solve M.E cfs.constituentvoice.net/contact, and you'll be able to request a ticket from our team. And again, I'll drop that in the chat again, so everybody has that who's on here live. So that being said, very much looking forward to working with you all again this year, and I'll turn it back over to the team from here.
Thank you so much, Lincoln. And thank you everybody who had questions in the chat, in the Q&A. We don't have time to get to everything, but afterwards we will follow up with you if we don't get to your question. But a few things. So one question, Lincoln, is will attendees have the ability to screen share during the meetings if they want to share a visual?
Yes, absolutely. You'll have a lot of functions on Zoom. You can chat, you can screen share, you can raise your hand. All those functions will be available.
Great. And is there a way to tell which attendees listed are staff and which are not on the platform?
So everyone in the attendees section are attendees from your organization. Staff, congressional staff will not be listed in that area. They will only be listed in the meeting with field that's in at the upper left part of the screen.
Okay, great. So the meeting with field is the congressional office or the congressperson or senator or whomever they're going to be meeting with. Right?
Correct, yeah.
And then the last question was that this person received the link to access their schedule, but they couldn't see how to access the calendar. When will we know the actual times to speak with our congresspeople?
So anytime over the next 2 weeks. We've been working on this for about 2 to 3 weeks now. So it can be a bit of a longer process with some offices. Some processes request faster than others. But once you get a time moving forward now, you'll get a notification from us that that meeting has been confirmed, and you'll see that on your schedule moving forward.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lincoln. And thank you for putting that information in the chat. If anybody's having issues accessing their schedule, you can always contact that or contact anyone at Solve M.E and we will get you set up. So thank you so much. Yeah,
and before I go, I just want to share this again, just so the typing is correct. So again, if you haven't gotten that email from us, this is the site you want to go to. I had it spelled wrong the first time, but again, I'll drop it in the chat and we can just go from there if there's any questions down the road.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Lincoln. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Emily.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And actually, Lincoln, there was one more question that I did want to throw your direction. regarding the documents that are shared ahead of the meeting. Where in the platform can constituents see the documents that were shared with the member of Congress in advance?
Oh, I was on mute. All of that will be in the documents section. So once you get into each meeting, you'll see an attendees or you'll see talking points in the upper right, followed by a document section beneath that. And those are all the documents that has been provided to the office.
Thank you so much. So folks can both see the documents we've sent to you ahead of time that are your individual documents to help you prepare, and you can also see copies of the documents that members received.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. Let's make sure I get this. Can everyone see okay? Thumbs up. Excellent. So we're going to kick right off. First of all, thank you all once again. This Advocacy Month, this is our annual advocacy event that we do every year, and it is so critical to our work. This year, we do have a new team member to share with you. I am introducing Samantha. Samantha is our virtual training and event manager for Advocacy Month this year. Her email, as you can see, is serb@solvecfs.org. She is here to help you with all of your questions, all of your scheduling needs, and she's working hand in hand with the Advocacy Associates team. So if you have any other questions that our Solve M.E team can support you with, please please feel free to email Samantha. She is here to help. So I'm going to talk about a couple different aspects today. We're going to start with storytelling tips. We're going to some best practices for your meetings and how your meeting will be structured, answering some of your questions about the roles of group leads and who speaks in what order. And then after that, we'll be going into the bills themselves, and we'll be drilling into and answer any questions you have about what our actual policy asks are for this year. So with that, I'll dive right into storytelling. So a critical part of what you do during your meetings is share your personal experience, your journey with these complex illnesses, and how that has affected your life. These storytelling items are really critical to share both your experience and perspective, and also to create a human connection. Our real goal is to impact emotionally the people that we are working with, and to have them really empathize with you and understand your journey. So a couple of storytelling do's and don'ts as you share your journey to really help make that emotional connection. So we'll start with the do's first. So do be honest and authentic. Don't try to exaggerate your story. Just your story is very real and very raw as it is. So just be as forthright and clear and honest and authentic with your storytelling. Do make it personal. It's okay to share and express emotion. These are some really hard experiences, some very difficult experiences that you are sharing. And that the purpose of sharing those difficult experiences is for these members of staff and Congress to really see what your life has been like. So it's okay if you get emotional, if you feel the need to cry, if you feel the need to laugh, to scream, that's okay. Just done in a context of professionalism, and these folks that you're meeting with, these members of Congress and their staff, are open and understand that this is your experience, and they will be welcoming to you sharing that authentic journey that you've had. Do connect your experiences to the asks. So a great way to do this is, for example, one of our asks really focuses on clinical care. So sharing an experience you've had of bad clinical care, and then tying that to the way that these legislation will create better clinical care, and saying that my bad journey will hopefully not happen to other people if you pass this legislation and help others get the services they need. And lastly, do repeat the asks. It's okay to sound a bit like a broken record if everybody ends up saying the same thing. That's actually a good thing. It means that we're all aligned. It means that we're all unified. It means that there's a lot of people who believe in the same point. So feel comfortable, and it's okay to repeat yourself, especially if you're repeating the asks. Couple don'ts in your storytelling. Don't be negative. Try to stick to just the facts. I understand that there's a lot of very difficult experiences out there, and that has been a challenge, but try to focus on the system as a whole rather than any individual who may have caused you harm during your journey. Please don't get distracted or connect to unrelated topics. We really want to stick to just the focus on post-infection illnesses and improving the outcomes research, and education around these areas. So as much as you may be really angry about other issues like the Supreme Court or immigration or 100 different issues that could really impact your life, we're really zeroing in on just this area of topics, specifically around post-infection diseases. And so try not to make the connection outside of that area of support. Lastly, or sorry, pardon, don't make assumptions or accusations. As you know, we'll be dealing with Congress members on both sides of the aisle. So don't make assumptions about what this person necessarily believes or focuses on. And then don't make accusations about what this member may or may have done in the past. Lastly, please don't counter or disagree with other advocates. We understand that everyone brings a different opinion and voice to the call. Focus on what you want to say, and please don't try to counter or correct or address any other advocate's points directly in a contrary manner. And lastly, it's okay if you don't want to share. It's totally okay if you're not feeling up to it that day, or maybe you're having a rough day with your symptoms. It's all right if you just want to pass when the turn comes to you. It's okay to say, I am not well enough to share today, but I stand with my fellow advocates. Please co-sponsor these two important bills. A couple best practices during your meetings. It's always great to be positive. And also, as the member or member staff is speaking back to you, to practice active listening. That means to acknowledge what they say, repeat back what they say, and engage with them in an active listening manner. It's always great to take notes. We really appreciate all the different feedback and the different insights that we receive. Notes are wonderful. And it's okay to ask questions. If they use a term or an acronym that you don't understand, it's okay to ask for clarification and to ask questions that you'd like to hear answered. Here's a couple of best practices in terms of virtual meetings specifically. The first is correct with kindness. It's not uncommon for these members to not have the best understanding of what they're talking about. They may use things like chronic fatigue syndrome or other terms that we would prefer rather not to use. So it's correct with kindness is my personal motto. Saying something like, actually, we prefer the term myalgic encephalomyelitis, and here's why. Make eye contact, and by eye contact, I put that in bunny ear quotes because you need to look at your camera. It's really easy to get distracted, especially I have two monitors personally, so I can look at one monitor, but then I'm not looking at all of you beautiful people. So make eye contact by looking directly into the camera or the light right next to your camera that indicates it is on. This is a personal tactic that I always use where I say Jeopardy rules, which is state your ask in the form of a question. Instead of adding, we really need you to support these bills, adding, what can we do to guarantee you will support these bills? Or will the senator stand by this bill? Those are great ways to ask a question and to make the same comments as what we're asking the member to do, but ask it in the form of a question. Remember, if they ask a question that you don't have answers to, that's okay. You don't have to have all the answers. You are there to be an expert in your own experience. If the member or their staff asks a question that you don't have the answer to or don't understand, simply write it down and let them know our staff will be getting back to you. Add that question into your meeting report form. We look at every single meeting report form and keep notes on every single meeting. So if there's a question that was asked in that meeting, we'll know about it and we'll get back to that member with the answer as soon as possible. Lastly, it's okay to get lost a little bit. If you lose your place, we have your handouts that were emailed out in advance. Always use those. They're here to help you. So it's all right to just say, I'm so sorry, excuse me, I'm having brain fog today. I lost my place. Give me a moment. Refer to your handout, find where you are, and keep going. Don't worry about taking the time you need to say what you need to say. So now I'm going to move on to a sample meeting outline to give you a little more information about specifically what order of operations a meeting will go into. In this section, I'll also talk a little bit more about group leads. So what is the role of a group lead? Some of you have been designated as a group lead. It's indicated on your meeting form. You will have been designated as a group lead only if you answered yes to that you are an experienced advocate and willing to help others. So if you answered yes to that question, you may have been designated a group lead. Group leads are experienced advocates who have indicated that they are willing to help others, and their role is to help facilitate the meeting. One role is to open the meeting, to welcome everyone and kind of kick off that awkward silence at the beginning. Another role is to take notes or assign a note taker for the meeting. Again, everyone can be a note taker. You saw the great platform use that has a note taking system within the platform, or you can just take notes by hand. But either way, that meeting report form is where we'd like you to add your notes at the end of the meeting. One role of the group lead is to make sure everyone has a chance to speak. Or even if they don't want to speak, they just have the opportunity to share their support. So that includes the group lead. So just because you're a group lead doesn't mean that you don't have the chance to share your own story, but your role is to make sure everyone has a chance to share their story. Another purpose of the group lead is to ensure that everyone stays on time. These meetings are generally about 25 to 30 minutes tops, some as short as 15 minutes, depending on how much time the staffer has. So one role of the group lead is to ensure that people don't go on too long. If one person speaks too long, that means another person won't have time to speak. So you'll notice that in the next section, I'll show you specifically exactly how much time we'd like to target for each section. And lastly, group leads, again, are experienced advocates, are able to help others. But if you were listed as a group lead and don't feel comfortable with that role, please contact Samantha, serb@solvecfs.org, to let us know, and we will find another group lead for that meeting. Now I'd like to go into a little more detail about what a meeting specifically looks like. There are 3 parts to a meeting: the beginning, the middle, and the end. So at the beginning, this section I like to call introductions. This is an area where we kind of go round robin style around the room, or in this case, the virtual room, and invite everyone to share just a 1-sentence description about themselves. Very short, very sweet, but so that the members or the staff can understand who's in the meeting today. The group lead will begin the meeting when the Congressional office joins. There's a sample opening about how the group lead can open up a meeting. They would invite the Congressional representative to introduce themselves first. After that person has introduced themselves, and they will generally be very quick and short about it, then you can invite the attendees to introduce themselves. Remember, when you're introducing yourself, it's just one quick sentence. That's your full name, your city and state, and your connection to the illness. So for example, if I was introducing myself at the beginning of the meeting, I would say, "Hello, my name is Emily Taylor. I'm the Vice President of Advocacy and Engagement at Solve M.E. I'm from Los Angeles, California, and I am a caregiver for my mother who has had ME/CFS since 2008. That's an example of a good introduction, about less than a minute long for each person. After your introductions, you will segue into your storytelling. This is the middle of the meeting. The storytelling is the most powerful and important part of your moment to shine. The group lead will call upon each person, one at a time, to share their thoughts and experiences. The group lead may need to remind people about time limitations. Depending on the number of people in the meeting, you should have about 3 to 5 minutes to share your story. And of course, make sure that the group lead also has an opportunity to share their story if they wish. There's a worksheet in your packet specifically about how to prepare your story. There's also been workshops throughout the last 3 weeks that you've been emailed about to help prepare to share your story. Also, if you would like additional resources on sharing your story, our Advocacy Cafe chat this Friday will be focusing exclusively on crafting and storytelling. So that it will be taking place at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, and that'll also be recorded for those who want a little bit more in-depth help about story crafting and storytelling. Lastly, for those who may not be familiar, our friends at M.E Action have also created a storytelling workshop that you can use to help craft and hone in your story. And of course, there's also a training video that we sent out and further on that has a little bit more details about story crafting. Remember, when you're telling your story, you can always begin or end with the ask. The ask this year is, remember, please co-sponsor these 2 important bills. Lastly, we get to the end of the meeting, where this is an opportunity for questions, a little open discussion, but most importantly, to repeat the ask, repeat the request. The entire wrap-up period of the call is usually about 5 to 7 minutes. And this is where the group lead can conclude the meeting, by answering questions, repeating our asks, and of course, asking for contact information. So here's a quick little summary of our asks. For those of you taking House meetings on the 10th and 11th of May, that House ask is please co-sponsor the Treat Long COVID Act and the COVID-19 Long Haulers Act. In the Senate, which will be on the 17th of May, the ask is please co-sponsor the Care for Long COVID Act and the Treat Long COVID Act. A good example of a question to ask at the end, if you're trying to wrap up the meeting and you are a group lead, these are some questions at the bottom there. You can say, what is the best way for us to follow up with you on these requests? And that's always a great question. Or when should we reach out for an update? That's also a great question to get a timeline. So that's just some examples of how you can round up the meeting. Of course, at the end of the meeting, please thank them. It's very important to thank them for their time. Be very gracious and thank them for making the time to meet with us today. And then they'll wrap up the call at usually pretty sharp on the timeline to make sure they're staying on their very, very busy schedule. Do keep in mind that these members and their staff are taking meetings all day, every day, back to back to back. So that's why that personal connection in your storytelling is so important. Lastly, I'm going to step into the third subject we'll be talking about today, specifically about our asks and the bills that and the narrative that we're sharing this year and the bills that we're supporting. This is a quote from Dr. Anthony Fauci. This is a good tool to use in your toolkit when you're speaking to members. This is from July of 2020 at a conference in which Dr. Anthony Fauci said, "There is no question that there are a considerable number of individuals who have a post-viral syndrome, brain fog, fatigue, and difficulty concentrating. So this is something we really have to seriously look at because it very well might be a post-viral syndrome associated with COVID-19. And unfortunately, we're finding the evidence and the scientific studies are confirming that. So here's the big picture of what our ask is this year. Long COVID is not new. It is the latest in a long history of illnesses triggered by infection. These post-infection illnesses are an urgent public health crisis that requires an immediate response. This is our narrative. As I said once before, post-infection illness is not new. Millions have suffered from long-haul diseases like ME/CFS, POTS, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and more before the pandemic. The pandemic has caused an explosion of cases of long COVID. Long COVID is experienced in an estimated 10 to 30% of people infected by SARS-CoV-2. Lastly, in order to really drive this home for your specific state, we have this new state tracker tool. So if you go to solvelongcovid.org, you can see a map of the entire country, and there's a little picture of it there on the right-hand side of your slide. And with that map, you can click your state and get all of the information about the post-infection illness rates as a result of the long COVID illness rates, specifically the financial cost and the prevalence in your specific state. So we can walk you through that later, but I very much encourage you to use that tool, find what your state numbers are, and feel free to share them with your member during your meetings. You can once again use that tool by going to solvelongcovid.org. To continue with our narrative, definitely take an opportunity to thank the members for the $1.25 billion in NIH research we received last 2 years ago. However, the NIH research takes time, and we need care and treatment now. So that goes back to our care and treat long COVID now. Also, I want to add that it's very important to note the disproportionate impact of long COVID on BIPOC communities. BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Here's a quote that's another tool in your toolkit from PBS NewsHour. "The people who are likely to suffer the worst brunt of long COVID and the lack of an infrastructure to be able to deal with it are already the poorer and more marginalized communities that were hit hardest by the virus." Really powerful quote. So now moving on to the talking points. This is all part of the broader narrative that we're speaking to this year. Again, our talking points very specifically, please show your support for long COVID by co-sponsoring Care and Treat, the Care for Long COVID Act and the Treat Long COVID Act. That's S3726 or HR 2754 in the House. And the Treat Long COVID Act is HR 2754 or darn, I didn't put the Senate number on this slide. My apologies, but the Senate number I'll have in just a moment. Also on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a little graphic that indicates the findings of the Solve M.E. recent white paper. These are the numbers we'd really like to hammer home with members so that they understood exactly how dangerous and prevalent these conditions are. So specifically with long COVID, meaning anyone who is impacted by prevailing symptoms of long COVID, there are an estimated 22 million people in the United States. That's almost 7% of the whole US population are people currently experiencing lingering symptoms of COVID-19. However, we've divided this into disabling long COVID, which is a more specific number. These are people who are no longer able to work at their pre-infection illness levels. And these folks, there are 7 million people, almost 2.3% of the US population, that are experiencing these specific disabling symptoms as a result of a SARS-CoV-2 infection. The cumulative cost for all of this to the individuals who are experiencing these symptoms, over $386 billion in lost wages, lost savings, and increased medical costs as a result of this illness flying through our country. So that's a couple quick talking points for you to use. Now I'd like to go into more detail about these two specific pieces of legislation and really how they will impact the entire field of post-infection illnesses, not just those with long COVID. So first, the Care for Long COVID Act, HR 2754 or S 3726 in the Senate. This piece of legislation specifically focuses on several elements of funding that really talk about the key areas we've identified: research, education, and clinical care. What this bill does is accelerates long COVID research through research infrastructure, specifically the creation of patient registries. This educates long COVID patients and medical providers. And what's really special about this part is that it specifically calls out related conditions like ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, POTS, and other forms of dysautonomia that are specifically written into the bill as medical education must include these specific areas of curriculum and substance. Next, the bill improves understanding of long COVID treatment efficacy and disparities by expanding the chronic conditions data warehouse research database to include long COVID and related conditions. Again, that and related conditions language is in the bill to ensure that these related conditions like ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, POTS, and other forms of dysautonomia are included. Lastly, this bill develops partnerships between community-based organizations, social services partners, and legal assistance providers to ensure that individuals with long COVID have access to needed services. And again, these are not just individuals who have what we would classify as the broad field of long COVID, but also individuals who have gotten these other illnesses as a result of the SARS-CoV-2 infection. And they would receive legal support services and care coordination at the tune of $50 million per year through this legislation. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Treat Long COVID Act, HR 7482 in the House and S 4015 in the Senate. This bill is much more targeted and specific. Rather, the CARE Act does 3 different areas in research, education, and support services. The Treat Long COVID Act just does treatment. And how it does this is through the creation of centers of excellence, something that those in the ME/CFS community will be very familiar with because we've been fighting for these centers of excellence for many, many years. What this bill does is authorize the Department of Health and Human Services to award grants up to $2 million for healthcare providers and community health centers that meet the centers of excellence quality for post-COVID care. This is specifically in the creation of multidisciplinary long COVID clinics that address both physical and mental health needs of patients. However, what makes this bill really special is that there's a provision that says the funding should be prioritized for healthcare providers with expertise in other post-viral conditions, meaning that the funding will go to experts in ME/CFS and fibromyalgia, POTS, and other forms of dysautonomia first, because those are the centers that need it the most. I'm going to pause there and we can shift into the schedule events in a moment, but actually I'd like to pause there and address some of your questions in the last 15 minutes we have. I know that there has been quite a few, but I hope I answered as many of them during the presentation as I could. Jesse, would you like to bring us to the Q&A portion of the program? And please feel free to share whichever questions address a lot of themes that have been coming up.
Absolutely. And thank you everybody for asking your questions. We got a lot, so if we don't get to all of them, we will follow up with you afterwards. But one major theme about the talking points is about where is MECFS? How is MECFS related to the long COVID ask that we're talking about this year?
Absolutely. So I explained in the bill specifically how the language in each of these pieces of legislation is really geared towards a broader coalition of post-infection illnesses. And we've joined hands, as you can, I'll share with our partners at the end, but we have a number of partners that have joined us from other disease spaces, including long COVID and the broader disability space. So we're expanding our message this year to be MECFS plus. It's not just MECFS, it's the whole community of these complex chronic illnesses, and these issues and this funding will help bring us all together so we can learn from each other and share the same services.
Fantastic, thank you. And another question that we have is a great one. How do I address my congressperson or my senator?
That is a great question. So if it's a member of Congress, you can always say by their formal title, representative last name or senator last name. So for example, for my senator, Senator Feinstein, that would be how I often address her. Now, if it's a staff member, how do you refer to the member in that? I often, especially if I'm having a brain fog moment and I can't remember exactly who I was talking to, I just say your boss. So it'd be great if your boss could help us with this legislation. That's a great way to do it. And always, generally, Mr. last name or Ms. last name is acceptable. You'll, for example, the staffer in Senator Feinstein's office, who we have a great relationship with, is named Andrew. So I would feel comfortable calling him Andrew or Mr. Fuentes. Those are acceptable terminology. But also these folks are just people. So it's okay to say, how would you like to be referred to? What's your preferred naming? And that's okay, and a great question to ask as well. It's a really good icebreaker question to kind of get the conversation started.
Fantastic, great to know. And another question somebody had is about who they're meeting with. So there's a lot of meetings that are in your schedules, and some of them are confirmed, some of them are still pending. Why would somebody have a meeting with a representative who isn't in their district, or why would they have maybe a meeting that they're not expecting to see in their schedule?
Oh, that's another great question. So we spend a lot of time carefully crafting the groups where we put everyone together. And some of those groups are by geography. So for example, everyone in one state or in nearby states. Some of those are by availability, as in people who I'm not available in the morning, I'm only available in the afternoon. So we group people by when their schedule works best. And some of those meetings are by relationships. So for example, we have some advocates that have built relationships in states that they don't live in, or that they are helping in a state group that they don't live in, and they might have been assigned to that meeting because they have a pre-existing relationship there. Lastly, group leads, all you experienced advocates, bless you all. We have always a big number of first timers. So we might move you around. If you're in a state that has a lot of experienced advocates, we might move you to a state that has nothing but first timers so that you can help the newbies. So again, if you are in a state that you don't feel comfortable being in, or you are in a group lead position that you don't feel comfortable being in, please email Samantha at serb@solvecfs.org. And let us know that you need to be moved, and we will absolutely accommodate that.
Absolutely. And I'll just highlight that again for anybody who has specific questions about your meetings, or if you have too many meetings and that doesn't work for your schedule and your energy, definitely, again, please email Samantha at serb@solvecfs.org, and I'll put that in the chat as well. So we have a few questions for our team leads. So one question is, when will they see the number of people in each meeting? Will there be like 1 or 2 or 10? How do they know what to expect?
Absolutely. So on your meeting forms and in the homepage that Lincoln did explain to us, you will see a list of there on the right-hand side, one side where it says meeting with, that's where everyone from the Congressional office will be. And when you'll have meeting attendees, and everyone in that section is who will be also joining your meeting. And remember that we try to put as many people as possible in there, knowing that maybe some people might not be well that day. So if you notice a lot of the same group in your meetings, we've kind of put you all together to support each other. We really try to keep groups together as much as possible because we find that folks really develop a rapport and feel really develop relationships and get comfortable working together. So we'll try to keep you together as much as we can, but do know that we might move you around depending on schedule and availability. And some of that is going up to the last minute as members of Congress change their timetables on us up to the minute. So definitely keep an eye on your dashboard, and you should receive an email anytime there is an update to your schedule. So keep you informed, and all of those tools and resources are available for you to utilize within the platform to help answer a lot of those questions, including you can message each other inside the platform, or if you'd prefer to use Facebook, we also have a Facebook group where you can connect with other participants of Advocacy Day, including other participants from your state. Lastly, you may have noticed on your form that there was a little question box when you registered that said it's okay to share my contact information with other advocates. So if there's a member in your group that is coordinating a conversation between your group members, you may receive an email from that person when you offered to share your contact information.
Fantastic. And one person I think asked about the slides. We will make these slides that Emily presented and Lincoln presented available afterwards so people can look at those as well. There's a lot of good information that you can use in your meetings. One great question was about timekeeping for leads, or really for anybody else. Do you have any tips, Emily, about how you keep people on track? Maybe how do you kindly provide a reminder if things are going a little bit over? What's the best way to do that?
This is something that is a really good question, and I still struggle with. So there's no immediate answer. But if someone is telling their story and they're really in the zone, and you look down at your watch and you realize we have 3 more people who need to speak and we're running out of time, I always like to just gently interrupt and say, "I'm so sorry. Could you wrap up? We do have other people who need to share." Or we're coming to the end of our time. Could you please wrap up so that other people can share? It's not easy to interrupt people, and I recognize that can be a challenge for group leads, but another great way is to send them messages in the chat box where you can tell them like, "Hey, 1 minute warning, we really need you to wrap up." But that's a couple phrases that I've used over the last few years to just find a gentle way to remind the speaker that that there are other people who need to speak as well, and time is limited.
Fantastic. And when is the best time to bring up the asks that we're talking about? Do you bring it up right at the beginning of the meeting? When you're doing your introductions of who the folks are, when do you bring those in?
Absolutely. I say bring up the asks as often and as frequently as you can. And I even said, if it's okay if you sound a little bit like a broken record because you want to be as clear as possible, that's the takeaway. Typically, as I showed in that slide where the group leads have their little opening moment of 3 sentences where they just start the meeting off, that's always a great place to say, we're here to talk about these 2 bills, and then let everyone take it from there, and then wrap it up at the end and say, once again, please co-sponsor these 2 bills. It's very important to us. That's always a great way. And so during the beginning, during the middle, during the end, anytime is a good time to bring up the asks.
Awesome, great. And then I have 2 last questions for you. The second to last one is, how can advocates know the previous support that the person they're meeting with has done about MECFS? If they've previously signed on to legislation we've asked about in the past, or been a supporter in some way, what's the best way to figure that out?
That is a great question. So for some offices that we have special relationships with, there will be a note in your talking points within the dashboard that that is something unique to that office. So if there's nothing special, you'll just see the regular talking points. But if there's something special, for example, if they are maybe a defense appropriations member who had served on that committee and had supported our request last year, you might see that noted in your talking points. So once again, I highly encourage to use your regular talking point sheets. Those apply to everybody, but in your dashboard, in your meeting tools that in your advocacy associates toolkit that you can access through those beautiful mechanisms that that Lincoln shared with us. Check that before your meetings, because there might be something special, unique to that member, and we'll indicate that in there. Specifically, we'll only show people who have taken action this year. So if you're interested, you can always go to the Solve M.E CFS website, solveme.org, and check out, search your member's name and see if we've mentioned them in previous years, and always you can mention that as well. But I would say, of all the things that to bring up in the meeting, I think the most powerful and tailored the most powerful and tailored item you can share is those figures, state specific, from our toolkit at solvelongcovid.org. If you go to that state map, you click your state, you can get all that information, and that's some really juicy facts to share that are state specific from our recent white paper.
Fantastic. And the last question, I guess, is another segue into you talking about the other events that we have, is how advocates can connect with each other before these meetings. As Lincoln said, you don't want to join your meeting until about 10 minutes before it's ready to start. And there might not be a chance for you all to talk amongst yourselves in the Zoom because it might not get started yet. So we have different ways to contact each other. We have that Facebook page that we put in the chat. We have the messaging tool on the Advocacy Associates platform. What other events do we have going on where people can meet up with each other?
That's a great segue. Let me share my screen again one last time. So here's a quick schedule of events for Advocacy Month. Is that clear? Great. So just a reminder that we have our energy guide available this year, so that you can see, based on the color of the circle associated with each event, what the level of energy is required. But speaking to your question, Jesse, about opportunities for people to connect with one another, the Advocacy Cafe chats are exactly what we designed new this year for this purpose. A gathering of virtually every week designed to enrich your community experience, recap highlights of Advocacy Month, and offer an opportunity for casual and open discussion with experts and each other. So we have our amazing featured panelists who will be there for every cafe to facilitate. But that's a really great way, especially this upcoming Friday on the 6th at, once again, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. We'll all be gathering to practice telling each other stories and preparing each other's story preparation. So really encourage you there. And then, of course, the Facebook group is a great opportunity. Lastly, again, there are some states that have state leads, and those state leads may be reaching out to you individually to plan as well. So those are the three mechanisms in which everyone can connect to one another. And to be clear, you only have that if you agreed to share your contact information. So if you answered no, and you do not want your contact information shared, it will not be shared. And you'll notice within the platform, your email address and your phone number are hidden. It's just messaged by name. So if you do not want to be contacted, you should not be contacted except by the platform. And again, you can ignore that if you'd like. But if you do want to be contacted and do connect, all of those different options are available. So we tried to keep it easy for both people who did want to connect and for people who wanted to stay more private.
Fantastic. Thanks, Emily. And with our last minute, is there anything else that we should know before Friday?
I just want to note that we have such an amazing slew of events. We have the World ME Day coming up on May 12th as well, which has social media activities there. We also have the Long COVID Research, Policy, and Economic Impact Summit on May 19th. Everyone who registered for Advocacy Month gets free complimentary virtual registration to the Long COVID Research, Policy, and Economic Impact Conference. So in your documents that you should have received, you can also access these on the Advocacy Associates platform. There is a code that you'll see on the flyer, and you can use that code to get free complimentary registration for that conference if you're interested. And last but not least, I do want to highlight the Empower ME Roundtable. This year we have learning from state and local leaders. Such an amazing panel. This is on May 26th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern time. Look at all these amazing faces. These are fantastic. These might be advocates in the MECFS and long COVID spaces that you've met before, but we're so excited to bring them together in a really interesting and engaging conversation about how all politics is local and what you can do at the local level to really expand and blossom your advocacy efforts. Last but not least, as we wrap up here, I just want to send a very, very special thank you to our partners and supporters and sponsors. We could not do this without your care and support. A very special thanks to Rare Disease Legislative Advocates who have sponsored the translation available today. Thank you once again to our interpreter, Fernanda. We are so grateful to have you. And a special gratitude to our partners, Body Politic, M.E Action, the COVID-19 Long Haulers Advocacy Project, Long COVID Families, Amera Disability, and Patient-Led Research Collaborative. All of these partners are so precious to us, and thanks to you, we've really generated a spectacular legislative platform this year that is going to spend millions of dollars to helping our communities get back to wellness. So let me stop the share there and just say truly, these events do not happen without all of your effort, the volunteers, the staff, the sponsors, and the partners. This is a huge coming together of many communities, and we come together because we know this is effective, we know your stories work, and we know that it makes changes in Congress and on Capitol Hill to help us get funding and answers for these questions. So I am so grateful for you all. This is truly a labor of love. And again, if you have any questions, you can always contact our team. Samantha is specifically here just to help you. That's serb@solvecfs.org. And this recording will be available also. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. We're more than happy to help. So Jesse, any final thoughts there?
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. If you registered ahead of time for this webinar, you'll have a recording that's going to be sent to you tomorrow. And it's also going to be available on our website and on our YouTube. And we will absolutely be in contact with you, and very much looking forward to our meetings. And thank you everyone for joining us today, and take care.
Have a wonderful day.